Hello everybody, welcome back to What Culture Wrestling. I am Gareth, sat here on my own once again. I was gone last week, I'm back this week, but that's not important. What is important, we need to talk about some Sunday news. So our first news story we're going to talk about right now is regarding I nearly said the revival, it's not them, FTR. And they were on the Gym Corner Experience recently, and they were talking about their contracts, really shedding a bit of light on what's going down with their contracts with AEW right now. Apparently it's just a handshake deal, so it's not a full long-term thing. We spoke about it yesterday on the news, but they also dropped some more information in that podcast, and they talked about an insult that Vince McMahon apparently gave them after a match that they had with the New Day, which they were really proud of. Everyone was speaking to him backstage saying, yeah, this is awesome, you guys are great, this is a great wrestling match, you guys are the best team ever. And then apparently McMahon walked up to the revival at the time, I can't say that. They said, well, this is what they said in the experience. They said, one thing I'll never forget, he said, he looked at me and Cash, and he said, everyone tells me you are the next Arn and Tully. You're the next great tag team. Well, that's the problem. You guys aren't Arn and Tully, you're just great professional wrestlers. And to me and Cash, we took that beaming with pride. He meant it as an insult, so I'm thinking to myself, you're comparing us to two of the greatest of all time who have drawn a lot of money in this business, and you're meaning that as an insult. So it's quite clear that was, a bit of a dagger perhaps from McMahon, but those two just saw it as a massive compliment, which you would in a way, because he's pretty much saying, everyone's saying you're as good as these guys, but I don't think you're as good as these guys. You're just a really good, really good team. And it's like, okay, thanks for calling us a really good team. Very odd, but right now, they are in AEW. Hopefully we get that Young Bucks match, because that pretty much will be a match between the two best tag teams in the world. Like, that's call a spade. That is what it's going to be. So I'm really, really excited for that. And Vince McMahon gives weird insults. Okay, so our next story, as you probably know by now, the whole world is just in a very, very, very weird situation right now. And it's meant that a lot of events have been cancelled because people can't gather in stadiums and the rest of it. And WWE have been affected by this, but not been affected by this because they've carried on doing the weekly television, but they've not been able to do the live events that they've done normally, well, traditionally. And they've just announced via a press release that they're also not going to be going over to Japan and doing any live events there that they were scheduled to do at the start of July. It was between the 2nd and 4th of July. And they've been cancelled now. There's no indication as to when WWE are going to be able to return to Japan, but a report earlier this month hinted that the company is now slowly starting to rebuild its live event schedule, but it's still completely unknown when we're going to get fans back in arenas, so when that's going to be possible, I guess. Japan ended its state of emergency on May 25th, so that's really important to note here. And they're rolling out a plan for promotions like New Japan, Dragon Gate, Noah Stardom, all these promotions. They're trying to find a way to have these shows run potentially with an empty arena, or I don't know, trying to bring small crowds into arenas in Japan. So we're gonna have to stay tuned and see what they do there. But as of this moment, WWE are not going to be going to Japan at the start of July. Right, this next piece it's a bit of a downer because we spoke a lot about Smackdown yesterday because that's what we typically do on a Saturday. We break down everything that goes on the Blue Show, and typically, it's a bit of an up and down experience. It's a 50-50. Sometimes you really enjoy a large aspect of the show. The wrestling portion of the show tends to be really good. And then when it goes into the whole gimmicky, hokey stuff that SmackDown has been known for in the past, that's where you tend to lose us. Whereas this week, it just seemed like it had a perfect mix. Even the hokey stuff was quite fun. But what's frustrating is after this show, the viewership has now apparently dropped below 2 million. Again, it's had a 10% drop from last week, and this is according to Showbuzz Daily. It's gone down to 1.935 million viewers on average overnight. So that's a shame because I had to be brought around a little bit on the show, but once I started to appreciate for what it was, I thought it was a fantastic show. It had some funny comedy, to be fair, with The Miz and Morrison. I thought they were brilliant in their little skits with Braun Strowman. And then the further into the angle between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles was fantastic. The Bayley, Sasha Banks stuff. It's just, there was so much to like about this show, and it's not been reflected in the ratings, which is really frustrating. I think most ratings have been quite inconsistent in this current situation because, I don't know, the current situation is inconsistent, so it's a tough one. They also scored a 0.5 in the 18 to 49 demographic, which was tied for third on the night. Right, we got a lot of WWE news today, but this one is regarding a star who isn't necessarily worried about being buried, which is a big worry for a lot of people who are coming from NXT and getting called up, as that's what it's traditionally called, to be called up to the main roster. But it's Matt Riddle we're talking about right now. He's referenced this when he was speaking to the Daily Star. He said, a lot of people are saying, I'm just going to get buried. But he said this is his quote, "I'll tell you this, nobody has been able to bury me yet, and that includes Dana White. So I doubt WWE is going to bury me." And then he went on to say that they've given him everything that he could ever ask for, and if anyone's going to bury him, it's going to be himself, but he's not going to do that. So yeah, I mean, it's typical of Riddle that he even takes this random little interview that he's done with the Daily Star just to poke at Dana White. Obviously, those two famously didn't get on. They butted heads a lot, and that's what led to Riddle leaving the UFC. But he just marches to the beat of his own drum. And as we've seen throughout WWE history, the people who do that tend to be quite a success because they're not trying to live up to anybody else in the company and they just be their own person, like Jeff Hardy, CM Punks, people like that. So I think Riddle's going to do really well when he pops up on Smackdown eventually. He's had a lot of promos and video packages that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure who he's going to face first, though. Obviously, he could face the likes, I don't know, he could be the first challenger for the winner of the Intercontinental title tournament against AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan. He could go up against all these incredible talents, but he's probably more than likely going to end up going against Mojo Rawley or Baron Corbin, because he's just going to have to squash a heel, isn't he, as soon as he pops up. So, I don't know. Hopefully we get some really cool matchups in the coming weeks. Finally, we've got a news story which doesn't involve WWE, and it's all about AEW. So this one's pretty cool because I think we've seen over the last couple of days that AEW seems to be putting a lot of stock in Dark this week, trying to get a lot of people watching the YouTube show, trying to get eyes on the product. And they've just announced the full lineup for Dark, and it looks pretty darn impressive. I'm just going to run through it really quick. You've got the Butcher and the Blade versus Shug D and Anthony Katina, cannot say names, it's just a very tired Sunday morning, I'm sorry. You've got Musa and Brady Pierce versus Santana and Ortiz, SCU versus Ryder and Fuego del Sol, Jurassic Express versus Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler, you've got Zack Clayton versus QT Marshall, Christopher Daniels versus Sonny Kiss, and you've got Lee Johnson versus Dark Order member 5, don't know why I couldn't say Dark Order. And then you've got the main event, it looks like the main event, is Jon Moxley versus Robert Anthony. So that's, I don't know, that's a subpar pay-per-view level card you got right there. I mean, I think that's a pretty cool show. And that's a free show on YouTube. Everyone needs to be turning in and watching that show. There's at least 5 matches on that show that could probably main event a Dynamite. Like, they're pretty, that's... Fair play to AEW for giving us that for free. Wrestling fans, we need this right now. Just give us all these free, incredible matches and we will just keep singing your praises. So I'm very happy with this. Let me know what you think of any of these matches. Which ones are you excited for? And will you be tuning into YouTube to watch these matches? Okay, so we've just had that little detour away from WWE. Now we're going to come straight on back to it. And we're going to talk a little bit about Mustafa Ali. He's been speaking to a fan on Twitter and he's revealed a little bit about his current situation. And yeah, it's probably something we expected in a way, but it's still a bit alarming to see it on Twitter. So I'm just going to jump into it. A fan mentioned, he joked to Ali that he has the easiest job in the company since he hasn't been used on television since last year. So Ali just popped up and just replied back and he said, "Yeah, man, it's real nice to be in your prime and wanting to use the exposure you get to bring light to serious topics, but instead forced to the sidelines for reasons beyond your control. Real nice to not be allowed to do what you're passionate about." So, bit of passive aggression there, obviously from Ali, being quite sarcastic as you can tell. But I'm hesitant to jump into this and read too far into it and say, oh, this is Ali saying that he's fed up of being underutilized and he's kicking off. Because there's been a lot of talk about him potentially being the SmackDown hacker, which I'm not sure, I don't think they appeared on SmackDown this week. But if he is revealed as that and he gets this really cool program where he's pushed as the hacker, this could have all just been a massive smokescreen for fans to make fans think, oh, that Ali's annoyed that he's not being used and he's going to kick off and walk out the company. So I'm not too sure. But if you've seen Ali on Twitter recently, he's been very, very, very vocal about the recent protests happening around the world in the name of George Floyd. And he's also called out the Forgotten Sons leader, Jackson Ryder, after he tweeted that support for Trump after what he said and everything else. And him and Kevin Owens weren't very happy with that. And apparently a lot of the back room, the locker room isn't impressed by that statement on Twitter that he put on. And obviously, he was a Chicago police officer himself, and he stated countless times in the past how necessary change within the law enforcement is. So he is such a unique force in that company. They could use him right now to just, like you said, just to be a really important focal point for current situations that are going on right now. He could just be a representation of that and just use this platform that he has to talk about change. I mean, but it just clearly seems like WWE aren't necessarily in that mindset right now. They don't want to use Ali in that way, which is a shame because it's a perfect opportunity right now with what's going on. But we'll just have to see what happens. He could get revealed as the hacker. He could just be not utilized and sit on the sidelines for another year. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Ali's incredible, super talented guy and a nice guy by all accounts. So fingers crossed we get to see him on television sooner rather than later. Right, so it's no secret at this point that WWE have been taping a lot of their shows right now with the current global situation going on as it is. And it's also not really been much of a secret that they have had to reshoot a few things when they've not gone necessarily according to their plan. It's led to a super overproduced program, which is what WWE loves. They love it when it goes exactly to plan. No mistakes, no live television mishaps. And yeah, apparently we've had a few of those reshoots happen in the last set of tapings that we had. And the examples that we've had, apparently, that got reshot was Otis and Baron Corbin when they had their match on Smackdown last week. They had a particular move that apparently wasn't executed the way the company wanted it to be, so they had to do it multiple times and do it over and over again. But apparently, according to Fightful, who obviously have reported this, they said that the move wasn't even messed up the first time. So it's not. I'm still not sure what that move was, which it's not really been revealed in SmackDown itself. When I watched it, it wasn't that clear. So, odd one that, really weird. But probably even weirder than that was MVP, apparently. Well, he did. He had a promo on Monday Night Raw last week. And it was, again, that was redone because he referred to the crowd, apparently, as NXT superstars. And he was then instructed over the PA system to call them Performance Center recruits. So I don't know if you have to earn the right to be called NXT Superstar. You can't just be signed to the company and be called an NXT Superstar, so you have to be called a Performance Center recruit. No idea. It just seems like another one of those weird WWE rules that just get made up and just implemented for reasons. Don't know what they are. But yeah, you didn't notice it when you watched the show necessarily, which is probably a good thing, but very strange all the same. Okay, so our last news story for today is involving WWE being very weird once again. Who knew? We've had a lot of it in this news. It's been a strange one. But apparently they asked Zack Ryder, or Matt Cardona as he now goes by, his actual real name, I know, who knew? They asked him, apparently, if they could use his pool for the Otis segment that happened last week. It was when it was the weird Mandy Rose imagination thing. We were seeing into her imagination of Otis being a sexy dude walking around. It was very strange. But yeah, so apparently he was sitting by the pool. He says this was, he was in the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. He was talking about this. And he said he was sitting by the pool with his girlfriend, Chelsea. And she had a weird look on her face. So she started checking her phone. And then he was like, babe, what's up? And she was like, someone from WWE is asking if Otis and Mandy Rose and the camera crew can come here to film a pool scene for SmackDown. Apparently he was shaking with anger then, Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona. And he said, you fired me, but you want to use my pool. I was pissed. They didn't ask me, they asked her. So it's, yeah, that's, have you got no shame, WWE? You just fired a guy, now you want to go and use his pool. It's just, to be honest, I should be surprised, but I'm really not. It would have been hilarious just seeing like a really angry Zack Ryder sat in the corner somewhere, just like, just cut to him sitting there going, you're using my pool and you just fired me. But in all seriousness, they did fire him. So I think this is beyond cheeky for WWE to turn around and say, yeah, can we use your facilities after we've just taken your job away? Not a cool move. And needless to say, the segment was filmed at another pool. So happy ending to that story, I guess. Well, the segment was still pretty cool. There you go. And that has been our news roundup for today. Me sat on my own in front of this grey, dull wall. It's been a very gloomy day today, but hopefully this news has brought you a little bit of happiness and joy. I don't know, I'm trying. I have been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe, follow myself on Twitter at gmorgan04, follow everyone here at What Culture WWE. And let us know how you feel about any of these stories today, how you feel about FTR being insulted, apparently, by Vince McMahon. And yeah, about how you feel about them cancelling events in Japan, how you feel about SmackDown's ratings dropping. There's been a lot of news. We need to talk about it, guys. So have an awesome day wherever you are in the world. I'm going to stop jabbering and let you get back to doing what you do, and hopefully I'll see you very, very soon.